Hello, Think Liberty listeners. Welcome to episode 12 of Tales from the Shire. I'm your host, AJ Olding. In February of 2015, Ross Ulbricht was sentenced to a double life sentence for running the website Silk Road. For those of you that do not know what Silk Road is, it was this website that people could go to and they could use exclusively Bitcoin and they could buy and sell goods and services. The only rules were basically that you couldn't violate the non-aggression principle and you couldn't violate, no child pornography. You couldn't order hits out on people and things like that. Anything that exploited someone else would be prevented. But other than that, anything was allowed to be sold on the website. And obviously, some people chose to sell drugs. And so Ross Ulbricht went to prison essentially on Kingpin charges. This week, my guest is Lyn Ulbricht, Ross's mother. She was in town last weekend to speak at Liberty Forum up in New Hampshire. Liberty Forum is an annual convention put on by the Free State Project that they do every winter. A whole bunch of speakers come in. You get to listen to them talk. I actually got to speak on a panel about healthcare. Well, not healthcare so much as dietary guidelines in the government and how they're messing that up. But I digress. The interview this week is pretty sobering. Lyn and I spent some time talking about the future of her son's case and the future of hopefully getting her son out of prison. But we don't spend a whole lot of time on the details of the case. If you want to learn more about that case, you can go to freeross.org. But what we do talk about, we talk a lot about the internal problems in the courtrooms themselves today. There's a lot of very disturbing examples of the way prosecutors and politicians kind of stack courtrooms against the people. And I don't know, it's a very good interview. We've also got some updates on going forward on Lyn's future plans on continuing to hopefully help get the message of her son to Trump and hopefully get him to commute her sentence and maybe some other presidential candidates. I hope you guys enjoy episode 12 of Tales from the Shire. All right. Thank you, Lyn, for sitting down and talking with me. Has it been a good Liberty Forum for you so far?
Yeah, it's always great to be with the Free Staters and in New Hampshire with like-minded people. It's always a pleasure and so encouraging.
All right. And so you're going to be speaking on Sunday. What is your panel again?
It's on criminal justice reform.
Okay. And so I assume you're going to spend a lot of your time talking about nonviolent criminal issues and your son specifically. Are there other areas that you're going to spend time on, or is that...
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's a big part of it because it's outrageous. I mean, how many people are even serving life sentences for nonviolent charges? It's a terrible thing that's happened in our country. But there's many other topics that I hope to touch on. The fact that we have lost fair trials in this country, the fact that prosecutors run the courtrooms, and what they use to prosecute people and go after people. I mean, I have a bit of a list, and it can keep going. It's really become a problem. They have weaponized the criminal justice system against Americans and others. And it's really needs to stop because it's really a liberty issue at the most fundamental level because they are throwing people in actual cages.
Yeah. Okay. Can you talk a little bit about, I guess, what you mean with prosecutors running these courtrooms? Because I'm a little familiar with the issues, but I don't know that I know it at quite the level that you do.
Yeah, well, first of all, the deck is completely stacked against the defendant going in, and the fact that they've even gone to trial puts them at a disadvantage. It's called a trial penalty, which everybody knows about. It's basically what happens is when people are accused, they are pressured and threatened to plea. 98% of people do because, well, they threaten their families, they threaten them, and if they do go to trial, they are told they will get a much worse punishment, which they do. And so many times, and I know people who said they have pled to things they did not do because they weren't willing to risk what they were going to do to them if they lost at trial. So these are the prosecutors. That's what they're doing. This is totally un-American. It's against our principles and against what our justice system is supposed to be.
I would agree with that quite a bit. So I guess going back to your issues, your son, what have you been up to lately in the endeavors to get his sentence commuted, or what other legal avenues that you've been going through?
Well, really, my main focus is to, one way or the other, have President Trump be aware and be convinced that Ross's sentence needs to be commuted, that this sentence is wrong. It's in opposition to the Eighth Amendment of the Constitution, which says no cruel or unusual punishment. It is an un-American and abominable sentence that sets a terrible precedent. I want to get that message to President Trump, and I'm doing it in various ways. One is having our petition online just to show support for the clemency for Ross. It's over 250,000 people have signed it. We're also, and right here in Manchester, Free Ross supporters are attending Trump rallies with signs and getting the message over that this is a movement. This is something that the president should take note of, that people care about. And also, I'm working also to network as much as possible with people who can get Trump's ear, or people who know people who know people who can get Trump's ear. I mean, I'm just, whoever can help me get my message across to the president.
Mm-hmm. So I know you had a meeting on Wednesday, on the 29th. With who was that with again?
I'm not sure.
The meeting that you had, I when I dropped you off in the airport the very next morning.
Oh, I spoke to the Right of Center group.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I addressed the group.
Okay.
I mean, several people did. I'm sorry, I got confused because you said a meeting. And I was
okay.
Yes, no, I addressed Right of Center, which is a group of Republicans and conservatives here in Manchester and New Hampshire. And my message was that I really think that there's I know that there are many supporters for Ross's commutation in New Hampshire. And New Hampshire is quite small, and Hillary won by a little over 2,700 votes. And I believe that if the president did commute Ross's sentence, that people would vote for him here and he could win New Hampshire by doing that.
Oh, yeah. Certainly here in New Hampshire, with the number of libertarians here in New Hampshire, the number of people who've, even at PorkFest last year, you were asking for people to pledge to vote for Trump if he commuted your son. I know I agreed to do that. I'm running for U.S. Congress with a different party, and I've pledged to vote for Trump if he commutes your son. So I think there's a lot of people in this room. There's probably that gesture would probably worth about 3,000 votes, I think, in the state of New Hampshire. I don't know for sure, but I hope that works out. And then speaking about at the last rally, the last time there was a sine wave that you brought up earlier, I was there. I know we had a lot of people come by and a lot of people ask questions. I talked to Republicans, I talked to Democrats, because everyone shows up at these Trump rallies. And I had a lot of very positive interactions with a lot of people. And I want to ask, have you heard anything about how that event went and how, if that caught Trump's ear or anything like that?
You mean the last rally?
The last rally that we had in Manchester here.
Yes, I was told by his political people that they were there and they saw the people who were supporting Ross at the rally, and they were impressed with that they can see that there is a movement. And out of that sprang from New Hampshire. We're doing a whole nationwide effort. So far, 6 rallies around the country have been attended by Free Ross. I will call them demonstrators. They're not protesters. They're holding up signs to get the president's attention and say, please pay attention to this issue. And we will continue to be at rallies as President Trump covers the country in the election year.
Awesome. Do you have How many has it been so far? Do you know?
6 rallies.
6 rallies. And then, so we've got one
It'll
coming
be 7th.
up.
The 7th one is Manchester
The 7th
again.
coming up is in Manchester on February 10th. I actually don't know if this podcast is going to be released before then or not. There may be 7 by the time you're listening to this. So what's the next state after that? Do you have several more planned out?
He doesn't have any scheduled. I'm following him. I'm chasing Trump, which is not easy because he is relentlessly having rallies. I'm kind of like, oh no, he's having 2 more rallies. I got to get more people. And, but right now the only one he has, maybe he's taking a break, but he Manchester before the primary, right before the primary, the 10th is his last one that's scheduled at the moment. But he doesn't schedule super far in advance, maybe for security reasons. So I don't know where it's going to be. And so, for instance, the last one was in New Jersey, which I was totally not expecting him to be campaigning in New Jersey. But luckily, someone from New Jersey reached out to us and said, hey, I want to organize it in New Jersey. And so, because we have supporters all over the country. And
that's
so,
good.
so people have been turning out in really cold weather at night, because now it's dark but by the time the rally starts, but they're there, and it's been really inspiring. Ross is so encouraged by it too.
That's good to hear. So I assume you've spoken to Ross recently. How is he?
Yeah, last night actually. He woke me up. He forgot the time change.
So how has he been doing through all of this recently?
Yeah, I mean, Ross is hopeful. He's a very naturally kind of optimistic person by nature. So he's, for the most part, I mean, look, it's tough. I'm not going to say that he doesn't have down days and times when he's very stressed out. And, but he is very consciously and intentionally staying positive, staying constructive in his activities, trying to not waste his life while he's in prison. And also helping others. I mean, he teaches, classes as well as tutors, and has done a lot of things for other prisoners. And so he stays somewhat busy, and he stays upbeat. At least to me, he doesn't hardly ever complain. I mean, rare, very rare.
That's good to hear.
He complains a lot less than people I know who are not in prison.
I complain a lot, so
okay. Well, think of Ross.
Yeah, always. So I guess in the work that you've been doing so far, you say Ross is working to help educate other people. And my understanding is that there's a lot of other nonviolent criminals that he's been hanging out with, he's been taking pictures with, and other things like that. Have you been reaching out to those particular individuals and their families and all of that? And have they been supportful? And have you guys been able to build any sort of coalition with that group? Or
yeah, and that's true. There's a picture on our website that Ross organized of him with his fellow prisoners who are all in there for life for nonviolent drug offenses. Nonviolent drug offenses, life sentences. One is in there for marijuana in Colorado, because the prison is in Colorado, for marijuana where it's legal. I mean, this is disgusting and horrible that this is going on. As regards, yes, I'm in touch with several of the other families. They reach out to me because I'm much more, I've been doing this. I'm more out there, and they need help, and I've helped them in different ways as I can. I'm extremely stretched myself, but I do try to help them as best I can, writing letter for them or helping them put up a petition. Frankly, they don't have always the ability or whatever it is that I'm doing, so they don't have the high profile case.
Yes. Because I think, well, with Ross's case and with your case still, it has sort of, it's been a bit of a lightning rod for a lot of the liberty-minded people and the freedom-minded people to kind of collect themselves towards and gravitate towards. In my mind, and I don't necessarily know that I want to speak for other people, but the movement itself the movement of liberty itself has not had a ton of wins. The movement of liberty has not had a ton of wins throughout our whole history. And a lot of the campaigning for different laws that get passed and things like that, it feels like you're beating your head against a wall, and where Ross's case is such a gross injustice, and all it has to take to really get overturned is to convince one person to sign a piece of paper. It feels like something that is. It feels like it should be an easily attainable thing, but I know it hasn't been, and I know it hasn't been for you. But I think that's one of the big reasons why so much of us gravitate to it. In addition to it obviously being a gross miscarriage of justice and everything else that's wrong with the drug war and with the legal system in general. But I guess that's how I see it.
Look, Ross is one of you. He's one of you. He and so many people at these events come up to me and say, that could be me. He could fit in here and be hanging with you guys and exchanging ideas, and, he'd fit right in. He cares about freedom. He cares about people. He's a compassionate human being. And you're right. It's a signature on a piece of paper. It's people and paperwork. That's all it is. It's not like, oh, there's a mountain. We need to actually relocate that mountain over here. No, it's a piece of paper and a pen. And yes, it's doable because it's people. It's not like an impossibility at all. It should happen. And it's a matter of getting it to happen. I think that one of the arguments that's very strong that could be very strong with the president is, not just New Hampshire, but in general, libertarians in general are spoilers for the Republicans. They vote Libertarian and the Republicans lose because of it. I've been told by many libertarians, and I'm all for the libertarians, okay? But I've been told that they would, vote for Trump if he did this as a one issue one time. And I would like it if Trump would see that, that, it would help him with libertarians.
So I guess if you were put in a room with Trump, is that the angle that you would go with when asking for this? Or do you have...
I think I would definitely talk about that it's just. That's the right thing to do, that my son is not violent. He was young. He didn't mean harm. And he does not deserve to die in a cage. Okay? I would definitely make that point. And then I would say, and this is what I did with his political people. I said, look, he's got a lot of people behind him that would appreciate this. And they go, yeah, I know. And that's, people who are against the drug war, but also a lot of, I would say, cryptocurrency and blockchain people, very much so, because, of course, the site was the first proof of use of Bitcoin, and he was a real pioneer in that area, and the Liberty people. And that's where my being the campaign for him, has the most support has come from, those two communities. And, of course, they overlap, but not completely, but a lot. And I'm really trying to reach out also to the anti-drug war people. They should be also very strong, and they are, but they're not. It hasn't been quite the same intensity of support. But yeah, I'm kind of wanting more support from them. This is the digital drug war. That's what this is. Ross shouldn't have a life sentence for drug because other people sold drugs on a site that he created. That isn't right.
Yeah, so actually going back to that, I've made this point a number of times to a number of different people. I think if you looked at the number of drug sales that occur through Facebook Messenger every single day, it probably vastly surpasses what was done on the Silk Road over its entire existence.
That was brought to Congress, that exact testimony, that in 6 months, because Facebook started tracking drug sales on Facebook, it was 100 times more than Silk Road in its entire existence in 6 months on Facebook. Where is Mark Zuckerberg? Hello. I don't want him in jail, but I would, the fair thing is bring him into court then.
Yeah, because he's got the money to fight it.
Well, because it's the same principle. If you're going to hold a website host responsible for what happens on a site, then Craig Newmark of Craigslist and Mark Zuckerberg and, all these people, Jeff Bezos. He was being sued. Amazon was being sued by a mom whose daughter bought cyanide on Amazon and killed herself with it. Terrible. But she was suing him and the vendor. And it's like same principle. And I don't think it's a good principle, but I'm just saying.
So have you reached out to any of those people to see if, I mean, I know that's a
No.
long shot.
I haven't tried. I actually haven't. I haven't.
Okay.
I don't even know how to get a hold of them, but that's not actually a bad idea, but I really doubt. I kind of doubtful.
It seems just as hard as getting in contact with the president.
Oh,
really.
yeah. It kind of does. Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
not necessarily a bad idea if it's doable.
No, it's not. I did try with Google because there was a principal. They were involved in a legal situation that was very similar. I was hoping they would at least be part of an amicus brief going to the Supreme Court, but I couldn't get in touch. I couldn't get anything from them.
So I'm sorry, I don't know what an amicus brief is.
Well, we asked different organizations, and actually 21 of them did sign what's called, or write, depending, what's called an amicus brief, a friend of the court brief. So when we submitted a cert petition to the Supreme Court on Ross's case, they were saying, this is worthy of you. You should pay attention to this. And we tried to get Google to join that, and we're unsuccessful.
Okay. So the primary goal right now is to get Trump to commute Ross's sentence. Are there still any legal battles and legal avenues that you're pursuing at this time anymore?
There's a civil path in the court in New York. Luckily, not before the same judge, because she happily retired, and it's good for everyone who cares about justice. For everyone. Yeah. I mean, that woman should be gone. Well, she is gone, luckily. Anyway, but we haven't, it's in New York where he was sentenced and everything. And with the same prosecution, I mean, not the same individuals, but the same Southern District of New York. And it's a civil case that is traditionally very, very difficult to get any traction with. But we're going to try everything. I mean, we're not going to, we'll try anything. Right.
Okay. Is that
legal? Anything legal.
Has that avenue been? Well,
it's in process. It's in process.
Okay, cool, awesome, and
that would not be likely to be. Oh, you're out of jail. It's more potentially, hopefully, a reevaluation of this disgusting sentence that he got.
Okay. Yeah, I don't quite understand how that sentence even happened. I mean, it
happened because of this judge. It was within her discretion, and she gave it. I'm going to give you the maximum within the law. She would have given him the death penalty if she could have. And actually she did, because essentially you are dying by the hands of the state in prison either way. That's what she gave him. Death in prison. I don't know how people like that sleep at night.
I don't either. I've thought that about Chuck Schumer myself as well. So has he, there's been no rearing of his head back in this civil case, has there been? Or
Chuck Schumer?
Yeah.
Oh, I think he's got other things he's doing, but no, but it's the Southern District of New York, which was Preet Bharara's district. Only Trump fired him, but they're going after Trump for various things in Southern District. But they're the ones that get every case they want. They are very much their own entity, and they wanted, Ross lived in California, was arrested there, but he was brought to that state and that district because they wanted that case. That they dominate. The Southern District of New York dominates.
All right. Well, that's really, it's upsetting stuff, and it's a very sobering look at, I guess, the legal system in America. Before I let you go, is there anything else that you want to tell my listeners? Or?
Well, just that, what I've learned from this whole experience. And, I went into this patriotic, thought Ross would get a fair trial, that this was America. And what I've learned is that our values have been hijacked, and we do not have the America that we were intended to have by our founders at all. And I think that we are at a very, very delicate tipping point in history right now because of all the technology that the surveillance state has. And I fear that we're going down the wrong way, that people don't understand that we're losing our freedoms very rapidly. And so I feel like we're at a crossroads, and that we can go towards innovation and freedom and all the things that really the Free State Project and people up in here in New Hampshire want, or we're going to go towards more government control and suppression and surveillance. And it could go either way. And I'm concerned about the fact that it seems to be accelerating in the direction of tyranny. And I just hope people wake up.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you very much for talking to me.
Thank you, AJ.
I wish it could have been about a happier subject.
Yeah, well, maybe it will be next time.
Maybe. I hope so. Hopefully he'll be here next time.
Yeah.
But so for all my listeners, the website is freeross.org. Please go sign that petition. And you can find out any details about the case there as well. All right. Thank you very much.
And also, if anyone has any political connections, get in touch with me. And if you want to come to the rally, please do. It'll be a lot of fun, and it helps. It helps. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you all for listening to episode 12 of Tales from the Shire. Again, I am your host, AJ Olding. Please feel free to reach out to me on Facebook. You can find my page. It's just the Tales from the Shire podcast with AJ Olding. And if you're interested in interacting with the rest of the Think Liberty groups, you can find if you just search Think Liberty on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, any of the things, you'll be able to find us, or you can go to think-liberty.com. If you really enjoyed the episode today, please consider dropping us a few bucks over at Patreon. Again, if you search Think Liberty in Patreon, you'll find us. It's not that hard. I hope you guys enjoy this episode today. It's very sobering to make episodes like this, and it's fun to talk to presidential candidates and things like that, and talk about messing around with status and things like that, which I've done on a couple of my episodes. But when you get to sit down with someone like Lyn and you get to listen to these stories about just how much the state has caused damage in the lives of human beings, and we all know it very consciously, but occasionally those reminders, they're gut checks, and they remind us why it is that we do what we do, and why it is that we hold the beliefs that we hold. And I don't know. It's depressing, but it's important to keep in mind. And it's important because it's the reason that we keep doing what it is that we're doing. And if you guys haven't gone to sign the petition to get Ross out of prison, please go to freeross.org. Lyn mentioned that she's trying to get, I think she said, to 250,000 people in the interview to sign that. And if Trump is ever coming to your town, wherever you are, please go to his rally and hold a sign. Just put Free Ross right on there and talk to every single person who comes up to you. Tell them why you're holding that sign. It's important. Thank you all for listening to episode 12 of Tales from the Shire.